Hi everyone. Tonight I want to share a story that could happen to anyone who travels by train. Imagine this. You board a night train, planning to visit your family. You fall asleep to the sound of the wheels, but when you wake up, you're completely alone. The train is still moving, yet every seat is empty, every corridor silent. What happens next will make you think twice before ever falling asleep on a night train. I don't visit my parents very often. Work, endless routines, always some excuse. That night I finally decided to go. I packed my bag, bought a ticket, and boarded the late train heading home. I wanted it to be a surprise, just to knock on their door, see their faces, and tell them I came for no reason at all. The train pulled out of the station, and I climbed onto the upper bunk. I pulled out a book, but didn't even get through a single page. The steady rhythm of the wheels lulled me to sleep. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I noticed was silence. At first, I thought everyone was asleep, but then I realized something was wrong. There was no breathing, no shuffling, no faint snoring from the next compartment. Just absolute, suffocating quiet. I climbed down and peeked into the corridor. Empty. My compartment was empty too. No bags, no clothes, the bunks perfectly made. As if no one had ever boarded at all. Maybe I had slept through a station and everyone else got off. But the train was still moving fast, cutting through endless forests. No towns, no lights, just darkness outside. I walked forward, opening doors, checking compartment after compartment. Every seat, every bunk was empty. My unease grew with every step. And then I noticed it. In the window, something moved. My heart skipped a beat. The reflection didn't show an empty car. It showed one filled with people. Men and women reading, eating, kids playing with a stuffed toy. I spun around. Nothing. Just rows of empty seats. I turned back to the glass. The passengers were still there. And one woman slowly lifted her head and looked directly at me. Her expression was normal, tired even, but the fact that she only existed in the reflection made my skin crawl. I kept moving, glancing into the windows. The reflections showed life in motion. Arguments, snacks pulled from bags, music playing in someone's headphones. Meanwhile, around me, nothing. At one point, a man in the reflection stood up and walked down the aisle. I whipped around. The corridor was empty. But in the glass, he kept walking, step by step, until he stopped right in front of me. He wasn't looking at his reflection. He was looking straight into my eyes. I stumbled back, my heart hammering. But in reality, there was no one there. When I dared to look again, the man was already seated again, calm as ever. But that was only the beginning. The more I walked, the more I realized the passengers in the reflection weren't random illusions. They were starting to notice me. I kept moving forward. With each new window, the world in the reflection grew more vivid. Ordinary people, doing ordinary things. A woman fixing her hair. An old man breaking bread. A child pressing his face to the glass. It was all too real to dismiss as a trick of the light. And more of them were turning their heads now. First a few glances, then entire rows staring directly at me. Their lips moved as if whispering something, but no sound reached me. I froze. One man in the reflection stood and walked toward me again. My throat went dry. The corridor beside me was empty, but in the glass he came closer, step by step, until his face filled the window. He raised his hand and pressed it against the glass. I couldn't stop myself. I lifted mine too. For a second, our palms almost touched. separated only by that thin sheet of glass. The lights flickered, and he was gone. I staggered backward, my breathing shallow. The reflection had returned to its ordinary passengers, calm and indifferent. But my nerves were unraveling. I hurried through the cars, opening door after door. The emptiness was endless, yet the reflections never stopped. It felt as if I were trapped between two versions of the train, one alive, one dead, and the living one was beginning to pull me in. At last, I reached the very last car. Its reflection, for the first time, matched what I saw. Nothing but empty seats. My heart slowed for a moment. Relief, almost. But then I saw it. One detail that froze me in place. In the window, high on the upper bunk, I saw myself. Asleep. The sight made my stomach twist. Was I dreaming all of this? Still lying back in that first compartment, half conscious? I pressed my hands over my face, desperate to wake up. When I opened my eyes, the train was slowing down. Lights flickered outside. Finally, a station. I stumbled back to my compartment, and soon real passengers began to board. Luggage thudded. Voices filled the air. The relief was overwhelming. But as I sat down, trying to calm myself, a boy with a stuffed toy walked past me. He lifted his head, glanced up, and looked straight into my eyes. It was the same boy from the reflection. I leaned back, shut my eyes, and pretended to sleep. Because honestly, I wasn't ready to see if his reflection was staring back at me. When I finally stepped off at the station, the first thing I noticed was the fresh air and the bustle of people around me. It felt like the nightmare was finally over. Street lights, chatter, the sound of wheels, announcements over the loudspeaker. Everything seemed normal again. But the longer I walked toward the exit, the stronger the feeling became that something was wrong. In a shop window across the street, I saw my reflection. And it wasn't me. The same person from the train, with empty eyes, stared straight at me as if waiting. I jumped back, but the window was just ordinary glass. With every step outside, reflections started to repeat my movements. Pedestrians in shop windows and building glass mirrored me with a fraction of a second delay. I froze, they froze, I sped up, they sped up. The anxiety grew, and my heart pounded as if I were still on the train. I tried to convince myself it was just fatigue, that half-sleep and stress were creating hallucinations. But when I looked into the window of a bus pulling up to the stop, I saw familiar faces in the reflection. The woman from the train, the boy with the toy, all of them watching me. I realized the terrifying truth. The reflections hadn't stayed on the train. They were following me, as if the world around me was just an extension of that mirrored carriage. Every glass surface could become a portal. Every reflection, a trap for my mind. I stopped on an empty street, trying to breathe deeply. But when I glanced at a shop window again, the reflection smiled. I knew it. The train, empty and eerie, hadn't let me go completely.